right, welcome back to another episode of Connectable. Today we have an awesome guest. She is a photographer, and most importantly, she is also a mom, Dani Garcia. What's going on, Dani?
Hi, thank you for having me. And I was super excited to join your podcast. Thank you for offering for me to be on it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited to have you on here. You and I were just talking earlier. I can't remember exactly how we are connected to you or which guest, which episode we got connected to you through, but I do know that we are connected to you through social media, and we've been following your stuff for a little while now. And I know you've been following our stuff for a little while now too. So it's cool to finally have a conversation with you and get a little bit more information into who you are and everything you're doing. So I'm looking forward to this conversation for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm super excited. I know it's sometimes hard to know like how we get connected to people on social media. I mean, sometimes I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is how we got connected." But then some some accounts I'm like, "Oh wait, how did I get connected to this person even though I know they've been on my page for a while or we've been on each other's page." So,
Right.
regardless, however we got connected, I'm excited.
100%. I'm with you. So, well, let's just jump right into it. So, I think a good place to start would be photography. Like, how did you get into photography? When did you find your passion for geez, when did you find your passion for photography? And then at what point did you decide that you wanted to make it a business?
Yeah, so when I first like got into photography, I was like a little kid, but my mom, she bought me like my digital camera and I just would take photos like of everything. I've always liked taking photos of myself, of people, of my sisters, um, or of like landscape, but then my mom would always tell me like, "You're gonna go crazy taking so many photos," because I have this hardware drive. Like I had to buy an extra hardware drive for our computer at that time because like I had so many photos that it didn't fit into like our computer. So my mom's like,
Wow.
"Okay, you need a whole new thing for your own for your own photos."
Yeah.
So that's how it started like as a kid, but it circled back around my life in 2020. Um, it was the pandemic. I just graduated from college. I was like going through this like spiritual, like, oh, I'm trying to be creative and find myself kind of thing. Um, so it first started with makeup that I was like, oh, I really love makeup. So I was really getting into like doing other people's makeup, doing my own makeup, doing my sister's makeup. But then I was like, I like painting too. So I started painting and I really got into it because I worked at a group home at that time, so I would, like, paint paint characters for, like, the kids I was working with, but then I was like, one of my coworkers at that group home was like, "Hey, like, do you know anybody who takes photos? Because I wanna do a photo shoot with my family." And I was like, I don't know anybody because at that time I was very shy and also it was COVID, so I was like not really talking to people that much. But then I remember I had a camera because I bought it like 2015. Um and I bought it for really, like, a good price, so at that time, I bought it just because, and then I was like, "Oh, wait, I have a camera in my closet that I haven't used in 5 years, but I could take your photos, but don't expect anything good because, like, I don't know how to use it."
Yeah.
So, that's how it came into my life, was 2020, like, with my DSLR at that time, it was my Canon, um, it was a Canon Rebel T5 or something like that, but that taught me everything, like, I needed to know about photography, like, because that camera wasn't it was like a very beginner camera, but it really taught me, like, how to shoot in every kinds of lighting, so I think if I didn't have that camera, I wouldn't really know where I'm at right now, but also thanking my boyfriend too, because he taught me how to use manual instead of automatic. I didn't know that was a huge thing, you know, automatic manual, but he was like, no, don't ever use automatic. And I was like, how am I going to learn manual? which was pretty hard. And then I was like, oh, but once you figure it out, it's like second nature.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually took a photography class in high school. I took 2 years of that photography class, and yeah, it was challenge. No, excuse me, I took 1 year, and it was challenging for sure. And we had to shoot using manual, and we had to learn the whole system. And honestly, I'm not even convinced I really understood it as I exited that class. I passed the class. I did well in the class, but it's a tough thing to learn. So the fact that you were able to do that and now it's just second nature is pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's honestly, I think it's like a lot of practice. Like even now I'm like, oh, if I'm not sure about something about it, like what does it mean? Like the technicality of it, I'm like,
Sure.
oh, just YouTube. YouTube is like the best friend of photographers or of anything.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure this is the same for you, but you wouldn't believe how many people you hear say, "Oh, I redid my bathroom using YouTube videos," or I learned all these new recipes through YouTube." Like, yeah, YouTube is a pretty amazing thing.
Definitely, definitely.
Um, so I know you just mentioned that you worked in a group home for a little bit, and you were doing the pictures for the kids and drawing pictures for kids and all that, or painting pictures for kids.
Yeah.
And so one of my questions for you is, I know you do a lot of different types of photography, and you do a lot of the family stuff where you're taking family photos, and I imagine that working with kids can be a challenge when you're taking I have two kids, so I know how they can be sometimes when it's picture time. They want to do anything else besides sit there and smile for that stupid picture. But I imagine that your experience working in a group home has given you quite a bit of experience working with kids. You have your own kid as well.
Yeah.
So what are those situations like when you're doing a family portrait and you have to kind of rein the kid in? Do you feel like you're pretty good at it, or do you have some like special tricks that get the kid to kind of cooperate?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, thank you for asking that. Like that's a very like yeah, because I think with photography, a lot of it, like I do tie in like what I do for work because for me, like my biggest thing with photography is like relationship building. So I want to get to know the person in front of the camera, whether it's like before the photo shoot, but then also during. So if there is like a kid in like a family shoot and it's like a younger kid or even any any age, because some kids are like, I don't want to take a photo. I really try to engage more with the kiddo and just like asking them questions, but then also kinda, like, getting to know them more, so then it kinda, like, opens them up more for, like, direction and kinda and sometimes, like, if the kiddo doesn't want to, because sometimes kiddos are very small. Like my daughter, let me just put in an example, my daughter, like, it's a
Yeah.
lot in the moment kinda shot, so I just have to be kinda ready to, like, shoot in the moment because the thought of like a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old to just sit there and be like, "Oh, let me smile," it's a little bit harder, especially if they're active.
Yeah, for sure.
So, a lot of in the moment, but then also like praise and like praising them, like being like, "Oh, good job. See, that's a good smile." Like, "Oh, look at oh, that's probably good." So kind of just hyping them up, kind of
Sure.
like I hype up adults, but a lot more hyping up with the babies or the little ones.
Right. And you probably don't do the baby talk with the adults, right?
No,
Yeah.
definitely not. No.
It'd be kind of an awkward photo shoot if you did, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, but I do, like, have a lot of energy in photo shoots, but I guess it's all, like, depending on the person, because like, some people are more, like, reserved, so I
Sure.
kinda try to pick up, like, what energy, but if that's, like, helping them, my energy's helping them, then I will put out more of my energy, but
Hmm.
if it's like, oh, they're kinda chill, then I'll be, like, more chill about taking photos.
Sure. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Well, it's actually one of the questions I had for you, because obviously the name of this podcast is Connectable, and it's all about how we connect with people. We get connected with our guests. Hopefully, our guests get connected with our audience. And so, one of the questions I had for you was, when you are, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but when you have a new client, how important is it to get connected with them? Because I imagine that if it's off a little bit, if there's not a great connection there, that as good as you are as a photographer, that could still come through in the work, right? But if there's a really good connection, I imagine that it makes the end product, the end result, even better. But I mean, is there any truth to that, or does the connection piece play a big role in how the photos turn out?
Yes, yes, definitely. I think when you get to know the person before, and I've had some people tell me like, "Oh my gosh, you're like the only person or like the only photographer I know that would send me voice memo." Like I will send like 10 voice memos and then but like I said, it all depends on everybody because some people don't like that, which I respect. But then some people, I think the more effort you put in into like the people that you're serving, and this is like for anything that you do, like even if you're working right now, I work with kids like as a case manager, like the more effort I put into getting to know somebody, the more they're going to open up to me. But also in photos, like it's a very vulnerable spot and you want to make sure they feel comfortable because almost 9 times out of 10, I feel like every photo shoot that is like a paid service, it's something 9 times out of 10, it's like the first time they've ever been in front of the camera. Like a lot of people that have hit me up, they have never been in front of the camera and they don't know how the process is going to be. So I think um just getting to know them is like step number 1. And I don't think there's like a structure to anything. You just be you, but then also like get to know them genuinely because I wouldn't want to show up to a photo shoot and then I'm like, I don't really know this person or I don't know how they're going to be or I don't know, what their vision is or what they want. But I think really getting to know who they are beforehand, it kind of helps also you feel like I feel connected to them too, and then they feel connected too. So I think it's really important for anybody in a service field, especially photography, like to get to know the person because that's the person you're gonna spend that hour with. Even though that's not that long, that's still a long time to leave an impact
Sure.
on somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that you're a case manager, and so I imagine that that can be a pretty heavy job sometimes, and probably a very emotional job sometimes. And so one of the questions I had for you was before I knew that was how do you manage and kind of balance, even though some people say it's impossible to truly balance, work and life and everything else, but how do you manage the photography business with being a mom and then also being a case manager, which, like I said, is a pretty heavy career, to be in. And sometimes that stuff comes home with you. Like, how do you manage all of those different things? Because I imagine it gets pretty chaotic sometimes.
That definitely.
Yeah,
I think this past year, since I became a mom, it really taught me like how much you need to ask for help. Like you can't because like the before being a mom, I wouldn't ask for help. I would just be like, oh, I got it. I would just go on like on a fuel. I don't know what the quote is, but like you just go on airplane mode and then you just don't take care of yourself and you just keep going, going, going. But I think what really helped me this past year was realize like using my supports, like not using my family, but like allowing myself to be helped and whenever it is that time to be helped, and help can come in different forms. Like sometimes my boyfriend may cook, you know what I mean, or he's shout out to him, he cleans the house and stuff like that. But like
nice.
um so things like that where it's like being a mom is like so much sometimes because you're like, oh my gosh, I have to come home to the baby and feed and do all these things for her, but then also still spend that quality time with her. I think just putting a lot of intention into like my day and also scheduling, just knowing my schedule too, like okay, how can I balance all this out, and also like the drive, like really wanting to do it because I think um during grad season, like that really taught me like how much I really am passionate about grad season because I would literally like, yeah, work during the week 40 hours. I mean, on top of being a mom, but then doing photo shoots, like probably like 10 photo shoots a week. And I was exhausted, but I was also very motivated. I was really excited to like capture these moments, because as a first gen graduate, like, for me, that was everything, like, graduating college, I was like, that was everything, so that's what drove me even more to be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to do other first gens." But to keep that answer short, even though this is a very long answer,
No, it's all good. It's all good.
I think what helps me is, like, yeah, allowing myself to be helped, but then also knowing when I need help, and schedules. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. And well, it's interesting because sometimes I've come across people like this. There's some people that have a really tough time asking for help
yeah,
when they could really use it. Um, and they just won't take any help, but they want to help everybody else. And it's like, man, you're just gonna kind of bury yourself if you keep going down that road. So it's cool that you were, because I mean, like you said, you are a driven person, and you have this internal motivation that wants you to continue to achieve the things you're passionate about, your goals, your dreams. And sometimes when people are really driven, it is more difficult for them to ask for help. So it's cool that you were able to do that, and you kind of had some humility there, and you were willing to do it. I think that's great because um, I mean, yeah, life gets kind of crazy, and if you just keep going that direction, it can be it can put you in a tough spot for sure.
definitely. And I think having, like, knowing your supports too, like, it's important because sometimes you're like, "Oh, nobody's here to support me," or you feel alone. But then there's people that are like, "I want to help, I want to help." Then it's like, "Oh my gosh, they want to help you too." Because as much as, like, you help others, like, you deserve that help too. And I feel like my family really helped me, and I couldn't have done it without them. Like, this whole parenting thing, everything, like, it's not that I get why people say it takes a village to raise a kid, because it is a parent's job, but it's like everybody around the kid really helps, like, to raise them, because it's impossible to just have one person raise a kid.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. So shout out to everybody who does it on their own, who's in that situation, because yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a it's a wild ride. I can't imagine what that would be like. So
Yes.
um so kind of going back to creativity, and obviously what you do is a creative field. What kind of things do you do to to stay creative? And then also, what do you do to get out of a creative rut? If you're really struggling to find that creativity, what kind of things do you do, activities do you do to help yourself get out of that place and like refresh your mind a little bit?
Oh my gosh. Thank you for that question, because I've been recently going through that.
Oh, perfect time to talk about it. Good.
Perfect time.
Good.
So I think whenever to keep my creativity, I think just keeping that spontaneity. I don't know how to say that
Spot
word.
spontaneous. Yeah, I'm not gonna even try it because I'm gonna mess it up too. So yeah, we know what you mean though. Yeah, we
To
know what
be
you mean.
spontaneous. That's my word. To be spontaneous.
Yeah.
Um, I just think I just try to keep being spontaneous. But then also I feel like when I was more in, like, a creative realm, I mean, I wasn't a mom yet, so I think I had a lot more time and a lot more flexibility to be like, "Oh, I wanna go to the bay? Okay, let's go to the bay. Oh, I wanna go to Folsom and do, whatever I wanna do, I have time. Oh, I wanna spend money on this, I have time." So, I think for me now, it's more like, okay, I have to be more intentional when I create and what time frame I'm gonna create, but then also um still, like, looking up ideas, like, still writing down whenever an idea pops up, I write it down, because I feel like no idea is a bad idea, and they all stem from somewhere. So I always like to keep that in the back of my head, like, okay, even if I won't do this now, I'll do it someday.
Yeah.
I try to keep that, but it is a lot harder for me to, like, just be spontaneous now and just go out and shoot, because I do think about my daughter. I don't want to, make it difficult for her schedule, and then if my mom can't watch her or my boyfriend can't watch her, like, I just wanna keep it catered to her schedule. But, um whenever I do have creative blocks, which I'm going through right now, I'm having a major creative block. Um, I just like to look at Pinterest, and then just kind of seeing, okay, what are ideas I have on my list that I want to do, and then just kind of seeing what really I'm like, oh, I really want to do this, but how am I going to take an action on it? Like, which model I'm going to hit up, or how am I going to do it, or if it's just going to be spontaneous, like, hey, just like recently I said, hey, like, does a couple want to do a free couple shoot?
I saw that. Yeah, yeah,
So, like, and then it's like, oh, it's not a planned couple, but at least a couple that are together and they are in love. So that's all that matters.
sure.
And I think just keep doing for me to just keep doing that. So then it just keeps that creative process. But yeah, the creator's block is a hard one.
Yeah, no, I've been there before. I think a lot of people have been there before, and even though it may last a day or two, it may last a week. However,
Mhm.
it may last like half a day, but when you're in it, it feels like it's going to last forever. And it's like I'm never going to create something again. Can't get out of this. I'm stuck here. So, um, yeah, it's tough. But yeah, that's what a lot of people say the same thing. Pinterest, TikTok, Instagram, they'll look at all these different places and they'll go, they might even just go for a walk sometimes, right? You go for a walk just down a busy street with a
Mhm.
lot of, coffee shops, you have people walking around, you have cars driving past, just all of that, busyness sometimes sparks that in them too. So yeah, creativity is something we talk a lot about on this podcast, and it's interesting because it can come from any direction. You just never know sometimes. Like you can lose it like that, and then sometimes it comes back to you just as fast. So I always like to pick the brain of people who do creative things to see how to get out of it, because I think everybody's found themselves in that rut. It's not fun.
It's not. And I think it's like a balance too, like doing some creative or like keeping some like, okay, yeah, this is a more structure shoot, but I
Hmm.
think, after, like, so it was, like, 3 or 4 months I was doing, like, straight grad shoots, and I did not have time to do creative shoots, and I feel like during that time, I'm very structured with the grad shoots because I'm like,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? But then also emotions is important, but then also capturing individualistic shots, so it's like individual to that person. But then also for the most part, people want like a photo that they saw so then they can, that they can buy because they don't want. I mean, sometimes people are like, oh, I'm open to anything, but sometimes people really want like a specific shot.
Sure.
So I think like with the grad shoots, I was like very being specific, but then trying to be creative. But it was just like handling both at the same time. I'm like, oh. So that's why I think now I'm like, oh my gosh, I have all this time and I want to create because I was like, I'm it's kind of slow right now. So I was like, I want to create, but then and now with my daughter getting older and it's kind of hot, I'm like, well, maybe it's not the time right now, but when the time is right, then I'll create.
That's yeah, it's an interesting point because sometimes we want to force it, and sometimes it may just not be the right time, right? You might be
Yes.
trying to force a square, or a round peg into a square hole, and it's not going to really work. So that's interesting. Yeah, just sometimes being willing to kind of step back and say, maybe not right now. That's
Yeah.
good.
And I think
Um,
life
okay,
was
good.
telling me that too. Like they're like, okay, just take a little break. Like doesn't have
Yeah,
to be a long one, but just take a little break.
sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, especially like you said, especially after grad season. No, it's also we're coming towards the end of the summer. Have you done weddings before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, because that's a big season right now too.
I know. I haven't like most of my shoots have been like the past month have been a lot of engagement shoots and
Okay.
then there's been a few grads, not as many like as the actual grad season, but some people graduate like more towards fall. So, yeah, engagement season is definitely right now and also spring because some people are booking out for like April, like for weddings.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna ask you this question. You don't have to answer this. If you don't want to
Oh,
answer this, just say I'm not gonna answer that question because it was dumb. Uh, so if you
oh
do the,
no.
you'll be surprised how dumb this question might be. So if you're doing like an engagement photo session, right? Has there ever been a time when you're looking at the couple, it's like, this is not going to work, but you just like, you got to take the pictures, but you can just tell it's like, there's something off here. This couple is not going to make it.
Man, hmm. I'm trying to think because I feel like it has happened. Like
Yeah,
at
I bet.
and I mean it I don't know if it maybe they were uncomfortable because some people are
Sure.
maybe uncomfortable like during photos. But yeah, there has been a time where like I felt like they didn't want to be like not affectionate, but just like some poses they were like, oh, it's like it was kind of funny. But I think it's because like sometimes with even with me, I'm gonna be real like with this one, because even with my boyfriend, like whenever we take photos and it's my sister taking the photo, like I'm very awkward. Like I'll be laughing the whole time. Like if you tell me like, oh, be serious and look at him in the eye, I'm gonna laugh because I'm like, he's such a goofball. Like I'm not gonna
Yeah.
like stare at him, you know what I mean? So I think I think like yeah, I feel like I do see like some awkwardness sometimes, but I feel like it may be just a relationship. Like sometimes they're like awkward. I don't know. Cause I'm
Uh,
like that too. So I don't know. Maybe I look like I'm not in love either. They're like, what's
uh-oh.
up?
That's funny. No, I'm sure that you're probably right. Probably a lot of it. And you mentioned it earlier too, that for some people, like they don't do this normally. So if they're doing the
Yeah.
engagement photos or the family photos, this is like maybe like the first or maybe second time they've done it, and they've been in front of a camera like that. Usually it's like a quick selfie with the cell phone, right? And so maybe it is nerves. We'll say that. We'll just say that. So for all the clients you've had, it's probably just nerves. Hopefully you have a happy marriage and things are still together, but we
I
don't
hope
know.
we all
So
together.
what do you shoot on? What are you shooting with now? 'Cause I know before you said it was a
Um,
Rebel, but what are you doing now?
well, so after the Rebel, I bought the Sony, oh gosh, I never know how to say the name, but it's like 3Ti or T3i, I think. Alpha T3i.
Sony, I've looked at some cameras. We've done some stuff with like not it's more like point and shoot stuff. We didn't really use a DSLR, but
Okay.
some of the names of the models, I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Honestly, I look at the price tag. I'm like, oh, well, it doesn't matter what the name is. I can't afford that.
Like I don't want that.
Yeah, no way.
But recently, I upgraded again because I was like, you know what? And that's why I feel like I've been having a creator's block because I'm like, I want to create, you know what I mean, with my new camera, but I'm like, the time will come when it comes. But
Sure.
I bought the Sony, gosh, I think it's called Sony Alpha. I don't
Okay,
know.
that sounds
I think it's
familiar.
Alpha 1, I think.
Okay.
I should know my camera name, but I'm just like, oh my God, I'm just gonna upgrade and I don't know the names or the numbers. I just know it's a good camera.
Hey, and as long as you can use it and you know what you're doing, doesn't even matter. So
Yeah,
that's the main thing. But you know what's crazy
exactly.
too, and one of the things I learned when I was in my photography class is I think it would surprise some people that really the most expensive, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're doing photography, even if as a hobby, I feel like one of the most expensive parts of the hobby are the lenses, because you get
Yes,
the body of the camera and it's expensive, but once you start adding those lenses, it really stacks up like crazy.
yes, yes.
How
The
many
lens
lenses do you have?
I have five. I
Okay, so
have
pretty
five.
solid collection.
But yeah, the lenses, but it's crazy because you get all these lenses, but then you end up just using one. Like you're like, oh,
Sure.
what's the case? I may
Sure.
use this one day, but I like this one. Like the 35 millimeter is my favorite. Like
Sure.
I try to change it up, but it's hard because I really like it. So I'm like, I think sometimes with photography, it just comes with your style. So once you find that's what you like and what your style is, you're like, oh, I kind of like this. I don't want to go back to an 85 or whatever other numbers,
Right.
50.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. It's so far beyond me. I use a GoPro. Like I love GoPros. So I use the GoPro. That's the extent of my camera knowledge.
Honestly, I don't even know GoPro, so
Okay. Well, I'll say this. If I gave you a GoPro today, you would be able to figure it out. I'm still not even sure if I really know how to use it. There's some
oh,
days I'm
really?
like, I don't even know if I'm pressing the right buttons. I don't know if I'm going to get this shot. I just kind of cross my fingers and hope for the best. So I think just your general knowledge of cameras is probably a huge benefit for you. But no, so what kind of, I know you're kind of in the creative rut right now, but are there any uh like any types of photography that you haven't really done yet that you would like to? Is there a technique that you would like to try that you just haven't had a chance to do yet? What are some of those things that you have, creative things once you get out of the rut, that are on the horizon?
I definitely want to do more like studio shoots. I'm more of like an outdoor person, but the reason why I like outdoor is because I'm just like an outdoor kind of person. So
Hmm.
I think that's why I always like go to it. But I mean, if anything, like if to attain more knowledge, I would say like learning Flash, because like with the off flash just to have like a separate entity, because I'm very big on natural light. All my photos are based of natural light. Like I don't have like a flash or external flash. I do use flash when I do events because sometimes it could get dark and stuff, so I try to have that there because it,
Sure.
it can get dark in events. But yeah, I would like to learn more of like using off flash and just more about like lighting that you can control,
Sure.
um instead of like the natural light, for example. But I think, yeah, I want to, but I want to do more like shoots, like styled shoots, like where I can like create something like kind of like set up, like do like my own setup
Oh,
kind of
cool.
thing. Um 'Cause I feel like I haven't really done that as much, like, over the years, like, now thinking about it, cause I use a lot of, like, I mean, nature. Na Scenery is, like, my favorite thing,
Yeah.
so maybe that's why I haven't, but that's definitely out of my comfort zone.
Gotcha. Very cool. Now, so since you are an outdoor person, what's your favorite season, especially here in the Sacramento, roughly the Sacramento area? I don't know exactly where you're located, but what's
Mhm.
your favorite? Because we have so many different kinds of seasons here, right? It's obviously right now it's very hot. We're coming up into
Yeah.
the fall where it's cool, a little cooler, but obviously you have the awesome colors. What's your favorite season to shoot in, and then what's your least favorite?
So, before I had my daughter, my favorite season was summer,
Okay.
um, just because I love summer. I love the sun, I love shooting with sun,
Yeah.
but I think after, this past year, I would say fall was my favorite because I just love I never knew that the leaves, which is crazy. I should have known this because I've lived in Sacramento for, like, 20 years or
Yeah.
however long I've lived here, but I never really was mindful of, like, how the leaves change and how pretty they are. Like, I was just
Sure.
always like I would just drive past them and be like, "Oh, okay, whatever." Like,
Right.
I feel like I took them for granted until I started doing photography, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, this is, like, so beautiful," like, especially in photos, like, I'm like, "Oh my god, this is so nice." So, yeah, shame to me that I took that for granted because it's always been here, but I just
Sure.
didn't notice it.
So, well, that's interesting too, because I imagine that once you really dove in deep to the photography stuff, it probably just changes the way you see the world completely, right? Like
Yes.
you might, like you said, you walk down the same street every single day,
Yeah.
and then once like because we've talked to videographers about this too. Like if they watch a movie, they see it, they used to see it as one thing, and then once they got into the filming, they're like, okay, now I see every different piece of this film. Or even when they're walking, they just see inspiration everywhere. So that is funny for you too. It's like it's something as simple as a leaf, like you said. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, it's a leaf, and then you do photography. It's like, wait a minute, this is like I see like 15 things I can do with it. That's pretty cool how it changes your
Yeah.
perspective.
It definitely does. I like that you brought that up too because I feel like before photography, I don't know, maybe photography made me more mindful or something like that. Like it's like some mindfulness with that because you are in the moment with that person and you're capturing a moment that won't happen again and it just happens once in that moment. But then just seeing everything about it and just the colors, and I'm a very color person, so I think that's why I like fall now more because there's so many colors. I mean, even spring is really nice too, but I feel like Yeah, now thinking about it, maybe that's why I get so happy and excited because like I'm in that moment, like really in that moment.
100%. I think that's it for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so do you, because obviously, again, going back to what we were talking about earlier and how we got connected is through social media. Do you enjoy social media? Because I always, social media is such a weird thing. I know some people are really good at it. You do a great job of getting your work out there and posting it. But even if someone's good at it, that doesn't necessarily mean they enjoy it. It's really a product of, I have to do this because I got to get my name out here. I got to get, more attention on my business. And then some people are like, I love it. I can do it all day. So where do you fall on the spectrum of social media? Is it something you enjoy, or is it something that you could just be like, if I didn't have to do it, I wouldn't even be on there?
Um, man, I feel like I'm in between
Okay.
because I think when I first like started my photography page, I was just like, "Oh, I'm so excited," so I would just post, and I didn't care. But then also I was like not really intentional with what I posted.
Sure.
Um, so I was just more like, oh, being in the moment, like, oh, look at what I created kind of thing. But I feel like now I'm more like I don't know. It's just like I kind of think about things, but then I also don't want to be so structured, like, oh, I have to post today. So sometimes I go like a month without posting, and then I'm like today, I was like, oh my gosh, it's been 4 weeks since I last posted. Maybe I should post something. Like,
Yeah.
so like when moments like that come up, it's a little spontaneous, but then I also still try to be intentional with what I'm posting. Like I'm not just like, oh, hey, like everybody book me. I'm kind of more like celebrating either that person that I shot with, or I'm celebrating something that is meaningful, like also to me, but also meaningful to that person I connected with. So I'm but with that being said, I feel like I have all this content I wanna share at the moment, and I'm like, I don't know what, like, I don't know how to because I'm just kinda like, I wanna share it all, but I know I can't because it's like, you can't share I mean, you can share every day, but then I'm like, I just get stressed out about things like this because I'm like, I don't wanna just look like I'm just posting, I wanna still be intentional, like, I love storytelling,
Sure.
I don't wanna be like, "Oh, just post, post, post," but then I'm like, I should be spontaneous too, you know what I mean? So, it's hard. Social media is a hard thing.
It's, yeah, it's a really hard thing. I agree with that. And yeah, and the funny thing is, you see people do it in so many different ways. And to
Yeah,
your point, I know people that post every day, multiple times a day, and
yes.
then I know people that you have to text them. It's like, are you still alive? Because you haven't posted in quite a while. So it's like they're just not on there ever. You know what I mean? And they do it just in very different ways, and then everybody in between. And so yeah, it's tough, and especially like for someone, it's if you just have a social media and you just use it as just a common person with nothing behind it. It's just you posting photos or videos. It is what it is, right? No pressure there. But when your
Yeah.
business is attached to it, when your passion is attached to it, then it does feel, there is that pressure that really kicks in. You know what I mean? And especially for you, like you never know if you post something that you could gain a couple clients from the post that day. And I guess on the flip side, if you like you said, if you post too much, is it going to push people away, and then they're not going to see your work? So it is a tough balance for sure.
Yeah, definitely, and it's like, "Oh, is this also matching who I am too?" Because I think a lot of posting I mean, even on my personal page, I'm very like, okay, I don't post as much on my personal page as I used to. But also another thing is when you have a 1-year-old that's all on your phone and like trying to grab your phone every time you're trying to make a caption, it makes it very hard to post too because you're like, I don't know what to say anymore because you just grabbed the phone and deleted everything. So
That's a good point. I've been there before, where it's like you because you don't want to be on your phone while you're spending time with them, but you got to get that caption off. It's like, I got to hurry up.
I gotta
You
hurry
forget.
up,
So there's
they're
some
all
pressure.
over.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
It's
I
so
get
much
that.
pressure. It's like but
Yeah.
I feel like I think there's no right or wrong way to do social media. I think it's
Sure.
just like just be who you are and whatever is best for you. But then also if you get in these like blocks like I do, like it's like just do it, girl. Just stop overthinking. Just do it.
A lot of people have said that at the end of the day, that's the best way to get out of it, is like just start making a mess and then see if something comes from it. So
Yeah,
I think that's good advice for anybody who's a creative that's stuck in that place. Just like you said, just go for it. Just go for it.
exactly.
I just have a couple more questions for you before we get you out of here, because I know you have more things you want to do, and I'm sure you have, I'm sure you have work to do as far as your photography. Well, let me ask you this, since I mentioned that, how long? Because again, it's one of those things where I think, like, I know for people who do video, I don't think people realize how long a 2 minute video or a 5 minute video can take from filming all the way through post production and then uploading. I don't think people realize that, and I think the same is for photography. Like, if from start to finish, so when you do the shoot and then you hand or you email or Dropbox the pictures to your client, how long does that process take?
Man, I feel like in busy seasons, it takes a lot longer than I expected because
Sure.
I thought usually my whole thing was like, oh, 2 weeks. You know what I mean? 2 weeks.
Sure.
But this was like me before having a kid and then me before having like a very busy season. So I think um it depends. Like I feel like it depends how busy the season is and also depends like how many photos were taken as well because I'm a very big person on like I love people having selection. So
Sure.
I edit a lot of photos sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, maybe I should cut down on the photos I edit, but I give back a lot of photos. So I think I think yeah, if it's a slow season, I would say 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, but if it's a busy one, yeah, sometimes it could take a month, but it just
Yeah.
depends. Like I feel like that's why it's so important when people book, they also let you know. They're like, "Hey, I need these
Yeah.
photos by this day," because I think and this is was all a learning experience for me too, like during grad season, but I think like I said, some people it's their first time taking photos and some people like, they've never been in front of a camera, so they don't know that whole process. But for me, it was like the first year that it was like super busy because the year before I was pregnant, so it was a little bit harder for me
Sure.
to be busy. But yeah, like I think yeah, it definitely takes a while. So I think with people, sometimes they don't know, so they're like, "Oh, it's just photos, she'll just give those out."
Yeah.
Um, but I definitely was like, "Okay, next year I'll be more clear, like, hey, if you need photos done by a certain day, like book a little bit earlier
Sure.
just in case. And then if you need them done by a certain day, letting me know, so then I'll make sure to give it out to you before that day comes, and then that'll be more on my radar." But I think people always think they're like, "Oh, it's fast, you just upload them and then that's it, you just upload them." Like,
Not at all.
no. So you just upload them. It's like, "Can you just give me the raw photos?" No.
Yeah, I think, well, that's funny because I am sure that I'm sure a lot of people have said that to you before, and I don't think they
Yeah.
realize what that would look like if they got that.
Yes, and 10 out of 10 is not gonna look,
Right.
not gonna shit on it, but it's not gonna look that good.
Right. Right.
Like, raw photos sometimes could be a little darker, and
Hmm.
they don't have any color in them, so it's not as colorful after you edit. So, um, yeah, but I think sometimes people ask for raw photos because they think that it may look better raw,
Sure.
but for the most part, it doesn't. I mean, sometimes it can look good. Like raw
Hmm.
photos can look good sometimes, but um not all the time.
Yeah. Well, especially, yeah, that request definitely should not come from someone who spends a lot of time on social media trying to pick up the perfect filter. Because, like, if you spend that much time on the filter on
Ugh.
Instagram, you gotta, let
Oh,
the photographer kind of cook, because you got some work to do.
oh my gosh. No. When they put a filter over it, Sorry, that was a trigger. See, this is a trigger.
I could tell. So if anybody is not watching this and only listening, if you could have seen her face.
You should have seen her face. No, because when people put a filter over a photo
Mm-hmm.
that you already edited, so one, you're taking away some of the quality that photo already had. So you're
Sure.
you're like probably 80, not 80%, let's just say 20% of the quality is gone because
Mhm.
you put a filter over it or whatever you did over it. Two, it's not it's not a raw photo, so you're editing over a JPEG. So with a JPEG, it's a little bit less quality. So it's just a mess, you know, like I don't understand because it's like you pay this money for the for photos, but then you're making it like my biggest pet peeve is like a photo that's not sharp.
Sure.
That's like my pet peeve. But when you edit over it, it's not as sharp. And I can tell. I can tell even if you edit it just a little bit, even if you do a little bit of brightness, I can tell.
So
I can
don't
tell.
try it. Don't try it because Dani knows. She's
We
watching you.
know. We know the photographers know. You would think that we don't know, but we know. Some photographers they tell me like, "Oh, Daniela, don't trip over that." You know what I mean? Like it's good. But then some photographers are like, "Oh no, that's an insult," you know. Some photographers, it's like it depends on the photographer you're working with. Some photographers will be like, "I won't work with you again if you do that." Like, so it's an intense thing out there.
Well, and here's the problem too, is that if someone takes one of your photos and posts it and puts a filter on there,
Mhm.
and someone else sees it who's not aware of what or how it works, what photography is like, they're going to see that photo and they're going to attach it to your name. So when they
Yes.
look at it, it's like, this is kind of a crappy photo. Like, who did this? Oh, Dani Garcia. I'm not going to use her. So it's like, there is a problem there in the translation because, you know what I'm saying? Because the person who's seeing it is not going to know your work. They're just going to know your work from this
Yes.
filter altered photo that should not have been touched. So it makes sense why people would be defensive over that because it's your business and it could potentially affect that.
It can. Yeah. It's like a brand, you know,
Sure.
it's like you're branded through the photos that you give people. So you always want to make sure that's what represents you because if it doesn't, then yeah, people are going to be like, "Oh, this is a horrible photo. Like, why did you go to her?" You know, especially if they don't know that you edited over it after after that or you might have screenshotted it instead of
Right.
downloading it. Like that has happened so much. I always send like a huge paragraph to people like how to download and everything because I've seen it happen more and more, like, with the screenshot, and I'm like, "No, don't do that," and I feel so bad when they do that because I'm like, "Do they not know?" So, I'm like, ugh.
Sure.
See, the screenshot, I feel bad because I don't know if they know, you know, that that decreases the quality.
Right.
But
When
the
you
filter is a slap in the face.
Well, yeah, because that person knows what they're doing. It's like
Yeah.
you're changing this photo and you should like, which is crazy too, because you paid a decent amount of money to have a professional do this picture for you so that you didn't have to do the filter. You know what I mean?
Right.
The filters for like my pictures where it's like, I'm trying to hide something, like something on my face, or like it's not meant for like a professional. Like that's something that you do in the editing process. So
Yeah.
yeah, it makes sense how it's a slap in the face. I thought when you said that you sent like a paragraph to him, I thought it was like a warning shot, like don't you dare do this.
Oh, no. I sent
Starting fights out there.
Oh no. Well, I just sent a paragraph saying like, if you need a screenshot, I'm not screenshot. Don't screenshot. This is how you download and kind of just
Sure.
explaining like, because sometimes people don't know. But then I realized I'm like, were they even reading that message? Because some of them still screenshotted it.
Right, right. Well, and to your point, not that we need to keep going down this road of the resolution of pictures and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
like you said, even posting it to Instagram initially, like that's one of the big complaints people have had, right? Like there is a loss of quality just when
Yes.
you post the picture on Instagram. And if you add the filter and if it's from a screenshot, then you start looking at the layers of the resolution loss, and it's like, ooh, it's pretty tough. So so I get it. So I'm glad I asked. That was not in my notes. So I'm glad I asked that question because
Don't think
give you a chance to warn everybody. Don't do it. Don't
don't
do
do
it. Don't do it.
Please don't do it. Just don't do it, not for me, but don't do it for yourself. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because then when you print the photos, it's just not going to be what you paid for, or it's just not going to be a good photo to print.
Right. Right. Um, one last question for you before we get you out of here. What if you, because obviously you said you love the outdoors. If you could go anywhere, if you had like a dream place where you could go to do a photo shoot anywhere in the world, it can be outer space for all I care. Wherever you want to go, where would you go to do a photo shoot?
I would go to Venezuela because that's
Okay,
where I'm from.
awesome.
That's where I'm from, but then also the reason why I would go there is because Venezuela is very versatile. So there's like mountains, but there's also waterfalls, there's beautiful beaches, there's islands. So I feel like I could shoot so many. And then there's also the barrios, like the places
Sure.
where the city, but then there's also it's just a lot of places I can go to there. Um and I feel like it would be dope to shoot there. I
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
about it. I actually met a Venezuelan photographer like recently, and I didn't realize that like it's crazy because we're cousins, but we didn't know we're cousins.
How'd you guys find out?
So, well, it was weird because like we ended up following each other, or I think I found the photography page because it he only shoots in Venezuela or whatever. So I was like, "Oh my God, like that's so dope. Like I wish I could go there." That kind of inspired me that I really want to go there, but
Yeah,
back there, but it's just so dangerous out there, so it's kind of
sure.
hard. But so then when I saw that, like I saw his last name and I was like, "Okay, Vivas, like Vivas, a lot of my cousins are named Vivas. It's on my dad's side, so I was like, I wonder what part of Venezuela he's from. So then when we connected, he asked me, and then I was like, well, I'm from this part, but my parents are from this part. And then that's when he was like, oh my gosh, my dad's side is from this part. And then that's when I was like, wait a minute, do you know like these people? So it was kind of weird because I was like, this person lives in Houston
Yeah,
and I'm in California, Sacramento,
yeah,
and like that's just kind of weird. Like, and Venezuela is a very like specific place, and
sure.
the place he's from is like very specific. Like that family has lived there for like ever. So that's why I'm like, how? Just all by the last name Vivas.
That's crazy. See, connectable. We're all connected somehow. There we
Connectable,
go.
connectable. That was the connecting point.
There you go. Boom. Perfect. That's crazy. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, that would be. I hope at some point in the near future you're able to get down there and do that. That'd be a cool thing. Like you said, when it's a little safer, easier to do. Because I imagine you don't want to roll down there with a bunch of camera equipment. You know what I
Oh
mean?
no, maybe film.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Sure.
even if this gets robbed, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So
Awesome. Well, hey, Danny, this has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed our conversation here. We could probably keep talking forever, but like I said, I want to be respectful of your time. So before we get out of here, where can people follow you? All of the social media, websites. Where can people get in touch with you if they're interested in booking you for a photo shoot? All of those things.
yeah, so I do have a website where I have like a contact page, but honestly, it never hurts. I love when people hit me through DMs just because I can see their face and also we can get connected,
Boom. There we go. I look at that. Ties
in
it
an
in.
easier way.
Perfect. Okay.
You can hit up my DM at Danny with the camera.
Boom. There you go. Easy enough. Is it so Instagram? Is it just Instagram?
I have Instagram and I also have well, I have TikTok, but I don't really use it. And then I also have what's the other one? Oh, Facebook.
Facebook. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I we have TikTok now too. We've had it for a little while. I hate TikTok, but I
I
feel like I
hate
gotta do
TikTok.
it. So it's not really my thing.
I hate TikTok too, honestly. But yeah, Instagram is the easiest one for me.
Perfect. That's how we got connected. So I can attest. She's very quick to respond on Instagram. So make sure you reach out. Um, I was going to ask another question. I'm not going to. It's probably a bad idea. So we'll wrap this thing up. Dani, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, and good luck with everything that you have coming up.
Oh, thank you, Josh. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you for
absolutely.
having me.
You're welcome. Take care. Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable podcast.